Good evening and welcome to the briefing room. I'm Madhav Das Gopalakrishnan. For at least 145 people on board the AI 2379 airplane from Phuket to Delhi, the trip was nothing short of a nightmare. At least 24 people were injured after the flight lost about 300 feet in altitude very rapidly. Many of the passengers were injured and hospitalized after the harrowing experience on board. Air India is now looking into the possibility of technical faults in the aeroplane as well. But during the course of the investigation, it has now come to the fore that the pilot in command has failed the second dope test as well. Remember, this is a procedural test that is conducted after every safety-related incident. The pilot sample was also sent for a confirmatory test apart from the original one, after which it has now emerged that the pilot has tested positive for psychoactive substances, and sources suggest that he has tested positive for marijuana. Let's first begin by taking a closer look at what has transpired over the last few days. Now, on the 4th of August, the plane suddenly lost 300 feet in altitude. 24 passengers and crew suffered injuries. Initially, we were told the number of injured passengers are lesser. Now we are told it's 24. On the 5th of August, sources have told us that the pilot in command failed the dope test. And sources also said that the sample was sent for a confirmatory test. On the 10th of August, French agency BEA joins the AIB investigation. Airbus's technical representatives are also going to assist. And now, on the 11th of August, sources have told us that the pilot in command has failed the second dope test. The sample has tested positive for marijuana. Let's now tell you the procedure of the entire dope testing process. 10% of flight crews and pilots are subject to random annual testing per year. Pilots are also subjected to mandatory dope tests following any safety-related incident like the one that took place in the AI 2379 airplane. Now, during these checks, there are 2 urine samples collected, and these check for psychoactive substances. One sample is stored for the confirmatory analysis. If the initial test comes back positive, then the second sample is analyzed. Sources have told Times Now in this particular case, the second test has also turned out positive. A medical review officer is now in such a situation brought in to determine whether the result could be linked to legitimate medical or therapeutic treatment. This procedure is followed as certain medications could also have opioids present inside them. Now, viewers, you'd remember videos from inside the plane also going viral where many passengers questioned the behavior of the pilot in command. This pilot was seen requesting the passengers not to record videos during the incident. Some passengers even claimed that the pilot's behavior was suspect. Now, top sources tell Times Now the pilot in question tested positive for marijuana. So what exactly are the drugs that are tested in the drug tests that are conducted right now in India? Let's tell you more. One is, of course, amphetamine and amphetamine-type stimulants. This is the first category. The second is opiates and metabolites that, of course, are sourced from opium. There is cannabis or marijuana as THC, which, of course, is various forms, as you can see, ganja, etc., that is there. There is also cocaine. The other category is barbiturates, and then there is benzodiazepine, which is now checked as far as Indian testing is concerned. The ICAO norms, or the International Civil Aviation Organization, has at least 16 such drugs which are prescribed to be tested. However, the concern when it comes to India is the relatively lenient punishment that are handed out to those pilots who fail the dope test. As of now, both pilots of this particular aircraft have been derostered. There are some pilot associations that have said this is also excessive. But here's currently what the punishments are like for those who fail the dope test. For psychoactive drugs, the first offense is de-addiction, no suspension. The second offense is that the license is suspended for 3 years. When it comes to the third offense, the license then is cancelled. Now, the government says that they will take strong measures now to prevent any such cases in the future, and have also indicated that they are ready to tweak the existing regulations to improve passenger safety.
Definitive action needs to be taken on this. But in the meantime, if it is anything related to substance abuse or substance using, I would say that from the ministry, we are taking it very, very seriously. And if we find that there needs to be some tweaking in the existing regulations, we are ready to do that also.
Well, the fact of the matter is the norms when it comes to self-prescription of medications also appears to be rather weak. Let's remind you of two particular incidents in the past where investigations following the crash revealed how pilot errors and their mental state could have affected their performance. Here's what the AIB investigative report said in the following cases. In the case of the Mangaluru crash in 2010, quote unquote, there was sound, nasal snoring and heavy breathing. One of the pilots had fallen asleep on his seat. When it comes to the Kozhikode crash in 2020, this is what the report said. The commander took unprescribed anti-diabetic drugs. Could have probably caused subtle cognitive defects. This is what the AIB investigation report said in these two cases. So the result of unprescribed medication has already been highlighted in several crashes. Why has there been no formal rules, and if there are rules, why aren't they implemented when it comes to pilots taking such medication? This is why today we are asking, is it time now for the government to tighten the doping rules or the anti-doping rules? And if yes, then what are the measures that can be taken to strengthen them? Let's quickly open this up and take it across to our guest. Joining us, Captain Sanjay Karve, aviation expert, is with us. Captain Ehsan Khalid, veteran Indian Air Force pilot, is with us. Captain Kabir Malik, aviation expert, also joins us. Also with us is Group Captain MJ Augustine, who's a retired ex-MiG-21 pilot. Let me start first and foremost with you, Captain Kabir Malik. There is, of course, a need to overhaul these rules related to testing. Only 10% of pilots are tested. There is some amount of random testing that takes place and testing after such incidents. Why have our rules been so weak for all these years if breath analyzer tests can happen after every flight?
See, if you know very well, just more than a year back when this incident happened with Air India Ahmedabad crash, I just raised the same question that time, but it was ignored by all the authorities. Now the question is again, why, who will be take the accountability of this incident? I think no one is there because they are playing from save to save each other's this game in this incident also. Earlier, they will just announce there's some problem. It was.
Who's playing? Is it DGCA? Is it Air India? Is it the ministry? Who's playing?
All the authority are same. We cannot be claim a single one. Even the airline also come into the scanner of this probe because it is a negligency by all the peoples, those who are including in this operation. I'm completely conduct and it is shameful for all of them. That's why we are facing such these kind of problems. You know, every week, every month, every year, and those who are living our lives, only the passengers. And this question is, this three questions are the same one question only, why we are here, to whom and for what. We are for the passengers only. This is the one question only. If our passengers are not safe, why we are not what we are doing in this aviation? I don't think so.
And one Captain Sanjay Karve, I find it amazing. I find it amazing that in 2022, the matter came up before courts when it came to the issue of random testing. The Indian Pilots Guild, the ATC Association, all went to court saying that let's not have this random testing. They appealed before the Delhi High Court. It's the High Court that didn't have to insist, no, we have to have this random testing. What is going on? Do pilots not want a safer working environment?
I think this is indeed surprising because pilots definitely would like to have a safer working environment. And like you pointed out, medicines without medical prescriptions, self-medication. The Indian DGCA medical rules are one of the most stringent in the world aviation. So generally there is an apprehension among the Indian pilots that if I have a small problem also, I may get grounded by the DGCA. So I have a strong feeling that the pilots resort to self-medication without getting into the thought process as to how it is going to affect. Now a case of marijuana detection. It stays in your body even if you use it once for 1 to 3 days. So we really don't know whether he had used it prior to the flight, 1 day prior to the flight, or 2 days prior to the flight. The airline culture also does matter. The airline needs to sensitize its crew that, look, this is something which is not acceptable, not only for the safety of the passengers, for your own safety also. And it is a big risk factor. Now, this particular aspect of the DGCA not carrying out the test or carrying out 100% tests, this is a regulatory issue. But I think the time has come when the DGCA needs to be changed to a civil aviation authority, a totally independent body, and not a part of Ministry of Civil Aviation. Today, for every small thing, DGCA has to run to the ministry to take an approval. And you know how the government procedures work, how the files move.
No, that's a very legitimate concern. These are concerns that have been expressed, and in fact, I think when Ajit Singh was civil aviation minister, he tried to make it a civil aviation authority. That ran into a wall as well. But be that as it may, what is needed here, and why can't we, for instance, bring in Group Captain Augustine, I want you to come in on this. Why can't we have mandatory dope testing? If we can do that for breathalyzer test, of course, it's a little complicated because breathalyzer results are instant. In the instance of these urine tests, obviously, it will take some time. But if you at least make sure that a sample has to be collected each and every time, at least you know which are the pilots who have failed this. You can take corrective action. Perhaps like we see in the case of sporting arenas, where there is dope testing that happens after the event. The point is at least there is some preventive measure being taken. It's better than having nothing.
Absolutely with you, Madhav, on this. No, therefore, for the sake of viewers, you and the panelists, let me take you back just to a couple of decades ago. Why did breath analyzer test start in the first place? There were no tests in the 70s, and when I started flying in the 80s, there were no tests. So people were taking, shortcuts or making use of that no test to a certain extent. Therefore, breath analyzer tests started happening. Believe you me, getting a BA equipment a decade or decade and a half ago was a Herculean task. It costed a lot of money. And the current BA equipment, which is like a very small equipment that you see, was not the breath analyzer equipment back then. You had to go to a room. It had a special, one mammoth-looking equipment into which you had to blow. And then the result came out in a while. So similar is the situation here. And I'm totally with you and the minister. If there is a requirement to increase it, the international norm, Madhav, is not for every flight you need to do a BA, international ICAO norm. But we do before every flight and after every flight which comes from abroad. So we are a little more stringent. Coming to this particular aspect, let's quickly, Madhav, indulge me for 30 seconds to demystify what happened. First is turbulence. So turbulence are two kinds. One, you go into a cloud, there will be a turbulence, a vertical development cloud. We call it the cumulus or a cumulonimbus, or something called a CAT. At 40,000 feet, there is no cumulus or cumulonimbus, very rare. So what you hit at 40,000 feet is actually CAT, clear air turbulence. The name, is the CAT itself carries the name. In clear air turbulence, you cannot see the turbulence. You will hit it and then only you'll come to know.
No, but now Air India has also dropped the term turbulence. Air India is not saying turbulence. Now they're into the hydraulic failure. Who are we supposed to believe? The airline's first statement or the second statement?
Madhav, let me. So when you hit a turbulent zone, in the negative G, all the fluids, the hydraulic fluid, fuel, your own fluid and the fuel, everything goes up. When it goes up because of negative G, you can have a transient failure. It is written in the document. You can have the autopilot tripping. It has tripped with me many times. It has tripped with many of the gentlemen sitting here many times. You re-engage autopilot. Now that, whether the pilot had a trace marijuana in his blood, has absolutely zero connection. In this particular case, I'm completely with you when you said that you had to do mandatorily every time we should. I'm with you on that. But it has absolutely no connection with what happened in this case, Madhav. Because there are three different
may I ask you? May I ask
connected, one is not connected.
May I ask you a simple question? If the pilot in command, the only fear is, of course, as you're saying, clear air turbulence can happen. Mechanical failures can happen. All this can happen in the air. We all know about that. Perhaps, there is some amount of risk with every amount of flying. A bird hit can happen. Anything can happen. The point is the pilot fit enough to fly the aircraft? If the pilot is under the influence of anything, whether it's alcohol or whether it's, marijuana, and marijuana, of course, this is also not medicinal, some kind of drug. This is a recreational drug, which we clearly know. So how fit was the pilot to deal with such a situation becomes essential.
Absolutely, Madhav. So there is a beautiful adage in Airbus, when the Airbus came into being and the fly-by-wire came into being, Madhav, it is loosely, of course, talked about. There is always a dog in the cockpit because that dog ensures that pilot doesn't touch any button. What it means is Airbus is capable of flying itself. That exactly has happened here. The moment turbulence was over, the transient failures, disappeared, and the aeroplane continued to fly the way it is designed to fly. whether the pilot is there or not. You'll not believe it, Madhav, beyond 10,000 feet, you are not supposed to disengage autopilot.
Yeah.
If it disengages on its own, you re-engage.
No.
Autopilot is supposed to fly.
The simple point, sir, is that the public has suffered. And from the perspective of the public which has been injured, which incidentally we were told was much lesser. I think we were told it was 15 on day one, is 24. Let me bring in Captain Khalid on that note. Captain Khalid, now the GCC countries have very strict norms when it comes to, anti-doping and the testing over there. FAA and EASA and all are much more liberal, and we follow the FAA pattern. Is it now high time that we shift to a slightly stricter regimen of testing? And if it can be done by other countries, and if we can make breath analyzer test mandatory, why can't we do it when it comes to such tests as well? Captain Khalid.
I'll come to your question. Allow me 2 minutes to just put the correct perspective. The incident happened because the pilot who was on controls and pilot who was not on control has to be very clear. The pilot on control has passed the dope test. Pilot who was not on controls, he was actually not even in his seat. He was standing behind. Okay, when this incident happened. What happened caused the autopilot to go off, and all three hydraulic failures had gone into, all three hydraulic systems went into a failure scenario, and aircraft had an stall warning. So the aircraft was pitched down, and thereafter it was recovered. In fact, the systems recovered on its own, and thereafter the pilots talked to the ground controllers and the company, and together a decision was taken to come to Delhi. In this entire episode, we do not see anybody saying that the pilot action was either delayed or incorrect or as per not SOP. It is an incidental finding that one of the pilot was tested positive in psychoactive drug. We do not know the level of intoxication, because having a trace and being impaired are two different things, and it is not me saying either. Even the High Court is saying that. So in India, we do test the psychoactive at random, at 10% of it in an year, and before the training, before the induction, or at any point of time, there is an incident. Now it is a practice to be done. America has over 5 lakh pilots. India has maybe 10,000 pilots. America never has even a BA test before a flight. We are already over-regulated from the conditions of any other progressive countries. Well, GCC countries have very tough measures on, in fact, if you are found in possession of drugs in a GCC country, it is death.
Absolutely. So
right.
my simple question to you.
No, that's what I'm saying, that, we can have our laws drawn parallel to America or Europe. Both places, BA test is not 100%. It is in India.
But why should we have weak laws? Because there are clearly violators here in India. And the fact is this. One second, Captain Khalid, I'm not disputing anything that you just said. As far as what has happened in the cockpit is concerned. Allow me to ask you a simple question, sir. My simple question to you is this. Can you, with any amount of certainty, assure all the viewers of Times Now and all the panelists sitting over here that if the pilot in command was the one sitting on the control, that he would have ensured that the flight was safe? Can you say that with any amount of certainty today, given the fact that he has failed both the dope tests?
Let me tell you with 100% assurity and 100% sincerity that I have zero tolerance in a pilot who is with psychoactive drug consumption and in the cockpit.
That is the concern.
Not only me, everyone. That does not mean that this particular incident had anything else to do. It
could have been worse. My point to you, my dear sir, is that it could have been much worse.
Sir, what we are not realizing here is that 3 hydraulic system having failed is first of its occurrence in Airbus 320. That is a very huge technical problem that we are looking at. Airbus joined the investigation within 24 hours. And while we focus on the dope test so much, we actually missed the wood that there was 3 hydraulic system. 3 hydraulic system failing is as catastrophic, if not more, as having, both engine failure or one engine failure.
But Captain Khalid, why did the airline take 4 days to figure this out? That's something that surprised you. Why were they selling us this logic of turbulence?
The fact the PDR, that's a technical entry, was done on landing. Okay, so selective leak only happened because of the dope test, but not of what was written actually by the pilot, that 3 hydraulic system failed transiently. It is written. It is not an subjective discussion. It is written in the technical log that there was a technical hydraulic failure. We should have been discussing 80% on that.
Absolutely, we should. Absolutely, we should. But it's an equally rare failure for a pilot to fail the dope test like this.
Yeah, while at no point of time I intend to say that, there should be tolerance on either drug or alcohol in the cockpit. Okay, but we live in India. Why the pilot guild went to the court for this is because there are so many things within India which is so loosely regulated. The food, drugs, the protein, even the meat. The meat is laced with so much of hormone and the dairy is laced with so much of hormone that they can give metabolites that is tested in urine. Okay, and therefore, our Ayurvedic drug culture, our homeopathic drug culture, these things, nobody knows what you are consuming. Like you said, Olympic athletes are 24/7 monitored by their nutritionists. They only take this brand, they don't go out, they don't do this. We can't live like that. So
that is a much larger debate. In fact, that's the second debate I'm having because there have been raids on various such providers of instant commerce, etc. And they have been found wanting. Their quality also, there are serious issues on that. But let me bring in Captain Malik on that note. Captain Malik, the point is, while there may have been a failure, can we completely ignore the fact that this pilot was under the influence? And is that not something that we also have to find a solution for, a remedy for? Because we came to know about this only 4 or 5 days later. Initially, we were all told it's only turbulence that has caused this. And the number of passengers was also not clear. It was far lesser at around 15. Now we are told it's 24.
I'm totally agreed that it should not be tolerable. It will not be considerable to give any kind of forgiveness to this particular pilot, those who was present that time of the incident. Actually, he has a record that he's consuming kind of drugs, but they are not disclosing his name. I know him past 7 years, this guy. He met me somewhere in flying time also. That time he was also toxic. So I just noticed that one day definitely he would become in this stage. And this thing is happened is the previous last flight when he is coming from Phuket to Delhi. So we have to be took it very serious as considerable that he should not come to be in this profession again. First of all. Secondly,
one second. Captain Malik, what you're saying is sensational. You're saying that this person has a track record of consuming drugs? And that you have personally seen it?
Not only talking about this pilot. I have a number of people in my list, those who are habitual, but how they come safely from the medical test. This is really a question for the aviation industry. I'm telling you why. BA is not the perfect find out the medical drugs test completely. It will not come you exactly.
Of course, BA is only for alcohol. We all know that.
He is capable to flying or not.
What is the prevalence?
Inside the cockpit. Yes.
What is the prevalence of use of these drugs, sir, according to you?
According to my suggestion, that the weekly drugs conduct tax has to be arranged by the Aviation Authority of India and the DGCA also, particularly as parallel to the airline also, because within 10 days, if a pilot consumed any restricted drugs or restricted medical medicines, he is habitual. So within 10 days, you can be find out through the
Captain Garve, if not every day, then at least once in
test. There is no harm in carrying out the GCMS test prior to every flight. The only problem is the test's run time on the equipment is about 30 to 60 minutes. And it takes a few hours for an expert to decode or decipher. But what it will definitely achieve is a deterrent. If I am undergoing a test prior to a flight for drug abuse, the result may come after 2 hours. But it is a definite deterrent for me, knowing, oh, if I've had a drug, I am likely to get caught or I will get caught. So it will definitely achieve the result which we are looking for. The results may come after 4 hours or 5 hours. That's okay. But I think that's a very good idea suggested by some of the panelists that there's no harm having it every day. You don't have to wait for the results to come before you clear the aircraft.
Okay, Group Captain Augustine wants to respond to you.
Yeah, 30 to 60 minutes is a runtime.
A quick point before we, I'm not trying to obviate the important issue. But a quick point is, and it has happened many a times, ofloxacin, which you use for your stomach issues, ofloxacin, onidazole, can give a false positive of an opiate. A levofloxacin can again give a false positive of an opiate. So amoxicillin can give you a false positive on amphetamine. So we need to look at the whole thing, give it some time. before we hang anybody. So that is my...
No,
my
let's not
little
hang
point.
anyone. But the point is, let's also save the passengers from these risks. Why not have a system of public disclosure? Why not put it on a website and in terms of your prescription that you have been given by a doctor, for instance, so that everybody knows from in advance what is the medicine that is being consumed. And once the testing happens regularly, pilots will be forced to disclose that. Is that not a viable solution, Group Captain?
No, it is. And absolutely with all the panelists on this, in fact, Captain Khalid has put it very, very, plain and clear. And I stand by what he said. With utmost sincerity, I say this, that no substance to be taken by pilot at all, for simple reason you are carrying 200, 300 lives with you.
Absolutely.
There is no two ways about it. You have to live an ascetic life. And I mean, so much so that you are getting up 3 in the morning, 2 in the morning. So a pilot's life is nothing short of a monk's life. I'm not exaggerating, Madhav. It's nothing short of a monk's life. And that is the, sacrifice he does to carry from people from A to B. That said, these three are not, the third thread which I said, the pilot's capability is not connected with what happened, Madhav.
Okay.
Pilot's capability is not connected with what happened.
And can I add something to it?
Quickly, very quickly.
It is not right to suggest that Indian pilots are habitual offenders of psychoactive drugs by any standard of data that is available. So if somebody says, if I knew 10 pilots who are habitual, it was his duty to report. And by knowing and not reporting, he is actually culpable to any of the threats, safety flights.
Come on, Captain, who will snitch on their own colleagues? Nobody is going to snitch on their colleagues.
But one can come and tell it on the media that I know so many pilots consume drugs. Then he can actually give a call to DGCA and say, these are the pilots who...
Well, I wish Captain Malik was with us. He's the one who made that claim, not me. And that's obviously a sensational claim to make. The point is, of course, this is high time. If there is even one person amongst you speaking out, it's certainly a very, very important wake-up call, and it's for the authorities to take action. In fact, Group Captain mentioned it very clearly that a pilot's life should be a monk's life. Unfortunately, there is a small section of those pilots who are getting inspired by certain marijuana consuming monks, and those monks also will have to be dealt with. There has to be a legal framework and punishment. Certainly at this point of time, rehabilitation is not enough if they have played with the lives of hundreds of passengers. That's something that we have to look at. I'd like to thank all our panelists for joining us. Group Captain MJ Vinod Augustine, Captain Kabir Malik was with us earlier, Captain Ahsan Khalid, as well as Captain Sanjay Karve. Thank you so much for joining us this evening, gentlemen.